everybody out there in reseller land. Welcome to episode number 138 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is November 8th, 2023, and my guest is Shelly in Florida. Announcements. In case you missed it, I put a poll on my Facebook group about the new eBay AI artificial intelligence feature. The question was, what are your thoughts on the AI description option on the eBay Sell Your Item form? Here are some of the comments. My comment was, I have played around with it and the descriptions are silly and not how a human speaks. I give it 2 thumbs down. Stephen Gittler said, it's beyond awful. The descriptions are absolutely terrible. They add a ton of flowery words that aren't necessary and often misrepresent the item. Anybody using them better be prepared for lots of item not as described claims. Caroline Smith said, produced junk. Michelle Laverty said, just want the facts, not all that extra embellishment. Janine Allen Joyce said, horrible, way too wordy. And I like Kimberly Berlick Berry's answer. She said, we've always written our own descriptions which actually resemble what an AI description looks like. Our fear is people will assume they actually are AI descriptions, and that may result in unnecessary questions. We're not going to change the way in which we write them because we believe our thorough and accurate descriptions are a major part of our success and lack of return requests. As a buyer, I don't trust AI descriptions because they are, by sheer definition, artificial and can't be relied upon to provide accurate information. Okay, Lisa Peter said, I tried it and it didn't boost my views or sales, and I had to fix things because the description was inaccurate and flowery, not using anymore. And finally, Carol Ann Ross said, marketing fluff, no substance, flowery, empty babble. No way. I repeat title, add a few specific bullet points of real information and call it done. I find AI to be ugly, fake BS, and even avoid it as a buyer, not just as a seller. To me, it screams lazy and fake. So the issue here is using this feature could cause words to be added that are not accurate and therefore end in returns, item not as described cases, or just upset customers and negative feedback. So the consensus of people who tried it is thumbs down. The results from the survey, 55% don't like it, 16% love it, 28% haven't even tried it, and 1% had no idea what I was talking about. So now you do. I don't know if eBay will hear this or do its own survey, but it doesn't look like a feature sellers are going to use very much. Too many problems. Okay, end of announcements. Now on to the chat with Shelly.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back. I have Shelly with us today, and boy, does she have some stories to tell. So let's start off with talking about where you're located.
Basically Disney World. I live between Orlando and Tampa, about 45 minutes from Disney, which is my favorite place in the world to be.
Oh, well, then great that you live right there. Wonderful. What we were going to talk about is that you had your own thrift store.
Yes, we do. We let's see, it's been I think 6 years now. Yes, because we opened the thrift store November of 17 and I got diagnosed with cancer in May of 18. So we never got a
Ah,
very long start. But so yeah, it's an adventure. But John and I, my husband, we managed that thrift store for 4 or 5 years before we took it over. So
okay. And it's not a national chain, it's an independent store. Okay.
the company we worked for decided they were moving to another building, a bigger building, and they decided they weren't taking us with them. So we said, okay, I don't know why. When we took the store, it was making $200,000 a year. When John and I left their store, it was making 500,000. I thought we were an improvement. They didn't.
Oh gosh.
So the building was empty, and I said, hey, honey, let's make a thrift store. So we did.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Okay. And we'll probably get back to that as we go through this conversation. But I wanted to start with how you got into eBay in the first place. When was
I've been
that?
on eBay since 1998.
Oh, you're an early adopter.
Yes. I'm from the early stages. I don't know when eBay was started, but off and on. I mean, it wasn't full time or selling a lot and buying things, but I have had an eBay account since then.
Okay. And I think it started in 96. So
Okay. Well, I
what was
came on
the
so I've been
event?
a while.
Like what was the event that brought you to eBay that made you say, I'm gonna try this?
Well, I have a background. I grew up going to auctions and yard sales and flea markets from the time I was 5 years old. My parents loved to go to, I mean, we lived in a little rural town in Illinois. So big old farm auctions with the hay racks mounted with stuff. You can buy a hay rack for $5. So, I mean, I grew up doing that and we repurposed furniture and we restored things as a hobby. I would have my own money as a little 5 year old. I'm sitting there bidding with these auctioneers. They didn't know what to do with me. So I have a lot of background in repurposing and antiquing, and so I think I have a knowledge base that just comes from my whole life.
Okay, and that's great. I've talked about that before. Like people come to eBay for all different reasons. Oh, I have this thing to sell, and I bet a collector would pay more money than somebody at my garage sale. Or then there's people like you that were just raised in that world of. I mean, it's still reselling. It's just it wasn't online. The
Well, it
antique
also
stores and.
probably was um, when I was a kid. I'm an only child, so I'm a spoiled child. Um, but one day my mother said to me, if you sell all this stuff in your toy playroom, you can have the money from the yard sale. So I'm a kid. I did. And I spent the rest of my life replacing all of the toys that I sold that I dearly love because I have a huge antique toy collection or vintage toy collection. And it took me a long time to finally find my epitome was it's from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It is called the Toot Sweet Toy Maker. And you take Tootsie Rolls in your hand and you warm them up. You put them in. There are molds. You pull the handle and you can make different shapes and you ate them. But two pieces together made a whistle. It was from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Huh?
And it was my goal to find one of those that, I didn't need a second mortgage for. And one day I caught one at an auction. It was brand new in the box and I got it for 300, which is a good price for that. It was a
Wow.
crazy price for a toy, but that was my goal. So that's kind of how I started was replacing all my kid toys.
Yes, buying back your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there that they see these vintage things on the Money Making Mondays and they're like, oh, I had one of those. I wish I still had it, so they could sell it. And then there's people like you that are trying to get all those things back that you wish you had never let go. So it's not always a bad thing if you let something go. We didn't know what things were going to be worth in the future. We had no idea that all these 80s
I know.
t-shirts would sell for hundreds of dollars and all of our toys that weren't made anymore, were going to sell for so much. So who knows? But we need both sides of that. The sellers that have them, and then people like you that want to buy them, that are buying back their childhood.
Exactly. The best purchase I ever made was for my mother. She's a delightful woman, but I'm a very emotional, goo goo, happy you give me a present. I'm screaming and smiling and ripping off the paper. Mom's like, that's nice. Thanks, honey. But she talked about this lit up Santa and she described it to a T. I don't even understand it. They had it when she was growing up, and he was flocked, but he plugged in. Real fire hazard, by the way, I'm sure now with today's standards. And so she kept describing it to me. There was no pictures, no nothing. I found him on eBay. And so I am so thankful for that, because my mother was squealing and screaming and laughing and hugging this item. So, I mean, that made eBay worth it to me right there, that I made her happy and brought back her childhood.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's fun too. But now I also use that to my advantage and do the same thing for other people when I sell them stuff.
Right. Right. Well, do you want to go through some of the things that you sold? Because you do post frequently on the Money Making Mondays. You're posting stuff all the time. So let's hear about some of your amazing sales.
I sell a lot of Disney because of my location. I have quite a collection of Disney. I sell some of my own. A lot of times I will, when I buy something, I will buy two and I will sell one. I don't like to exploit that. I'm not the person that goes in with garbage bags and buys all of something, but I might buy two. And then I sell the one, which usually pays for mine. So I like that. But we get so much Disney donated at our store because we're local.
Right.
And it amazes me. I mean, all brand new with tags. It's a big, Disney is a big market for me. It's one of the few clothing items I'll sell because I don't like doing clothes, just because I think it's kind of a pain. I sell new with tags, but I don't like measuring, and I don't do returns. I absolutely do not do returns. So that's why I don't like clothes, because everybody wants to bring it back.
So are you saying that, do you ever get requests for returns on those very special Disney items?
Occasionally, more, not very often. I had one plush, the Queen of Hearts, that I sold, and she was unhappy. And I drive everyone crazy. I'm meticulous. I photograph everything. I detail everything. I don't like in ads. So yeah, no. But there was a flaw and I didn't see it and I didn't catch it and she wasn't happy. And I said, well, if you want to send it back, that's fine. But I said, how about I just give you $20 off? And she said, oh, that'll work. So I've done that a few times, but I have never had anyone return something, except one time when eBay forced me to take a return that was not okay. They said there was a flaw with a vintage cookie jar and there was not. But anyway, I took it back.
Well, I like that strategy whenever I get a request for a return, is do what you can do to have the customer keep it, especially if it's something you missed. Because do you even want it back if there's something wrong with it?
Exactly.
And then you're going to have to pay to get it back if they open an INAD. So that's my first line of defense is, oh, we're so sorry we missed that. Our goal is 100% customer satisfaction. How would you like to resolve this? And let them say, oh, just give me $10 back. And that's a win, because then you don't have to fool with getting it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. It's to me, it's easier. I love managed payments now. I used to not like how at the end of the month I got this huge bill I had to pay.
I
It's so
agree.
easy to manage payments. You just return the money. You don't see it. It's not a big deal. Just move on to the next item. I think too many people stress so much about this one item and this one customer, and move on. I mean, it's a glitch. It's a bump in your road. Let it go and keep going, because they're not worth your time.
There's a million more where that came from. Not to mean that like customers aren't important, but you have to pick your battles. You can't get all caught up. And if, for the listeners, if you have perfect 100% feedback, that is wonderful. But it's usually not a matter of if, but when it happens. And it's, nobody's store is perfect. If it is perfect, it won't be perfect forever. That's just life. Things happen. So that's a good attitude to have, is just deal with it the best you can. Don't let it get under your skin. Don't take it personally. Just resolve the problem as quickly and professionally as you can and move on, because you've got more stuff to list, you've got more customers to work with, and that's how the world works out there in retail. And God forbid, if you owned a restaurant, what you would hear and the money you would have to give back. It's
Or
like,
in a thrift store, trust me. Yes.
yeah, well, and you've been, the owner of a thrift store, so people come back and they want all kinds of stuff, but you can't take it so seriously. That's life. Don't take it too seriously, because you will drive yourself crazy.
Yep, I agree.
So I want to ask, since you mentioned Disney, are there any Disney items that are really good sellers, like that people should look for? Because I'm overwhelmed by that category. It can be Disney store and be valuable. It can be Walmart Disney. There's so much of it out there.
The most collectible part, other than obviously the vintage old Disneyana, but the Walmarts and any of the chain stores, not typically. You want the tag to say Disney Parks.
Okay.
And that's a big biggie. That means it's merchandise that you could only get in the parks
Okay.
or in the actual Shop Disney app. And very rarely do I buy anything that's not. So that's kind of a biggie to look for. Vintage will have different tags, but it's been Disney Parks for at least since I've been going, last 15 years anyway.
Mhm.
And that's a big collectible. Popcorn buckets are a crazy collectible that I probably have a small addiction to. It's highly possible. I don't even eat popcorn in the parks, but I love.
So can you explain what that means to people who aren't Disney people, which I'm not? I learned that a few years ago, and I'm like, what is this thing with all the popcorn? What is that about?
Well, it used to be you just would go up and get popcorn. Then they started making just a plastic pail with a lid, and it was refillable. So if you were there on vacation for 2 weeks, you would start it out with free refills or like $1 or $2 refills. That still happens. You can refill your popcorn buckets. But then they, of course, Disney and their lovely branding discovered that, what if we make a shaped one? I wonder if somebody'd buy that. I don't know what the first one was, but there's always a seasonal Mickey, pretty much. Like this year's Mickey for Halloween is black and looks like a skeleton. Last year's was a mummy. There's always a bunch for Christmas. There'll be for a new ride. The biggest craziness was Figment. Figment, if anybody doesn't know, is a imagination purple dragon from Epcot. There are people on this call who might have a slight obsession with Figment, namely me. And when the Figment popcorn bucket came out, the world and the internet went insane. And some of us were in line for 8 hours to get our Figment popcorn buckets.
Really?
Yeah. And you were allowed to buy 2 per person. And they were the hottest collectible on the planet at the time. That was 2 years ago. Yeah. So we went. I have a funny picture of my husband walking around the park with 4 giant purple dragon popcorn buckets hanging off of his body. Things you do for love. So we had them, but I mean, they were selling we paid $28, $30 for them a piece. They come with fancy popcorn in them. And then they were instantly selling for $200, $300, $400, $500 a piece.
Yeah, I just jumped on Terapeak to look at the prices now, and I'm looking at date last sold. They're still selling. There's all kind of different prices depending on the condition. Does it have paperwork with it? Figment is this little purple dragon looking guy.
Well, and now there's been a second edition because it was so popular. They reordered them for the next year. So they ordered a lot more. So that really hurt the market for them.
Uh-huh.
But, of course, I probably went and bought more again. But I have a friend in Washington who's a Disney Vacation Club member who has little nieces and nephews who had to have them. So anyway, we had to buy lots. But I have not sold mine. I still have my originals, but I have everything from that day. I have a special fork, a special pin, a whole collection. So probably before Christmas, I'm going to give in and list one of them. But mine stay with me. So I probably have 25, 30 popcorn buckets.
Hmm. And they're everything. It's like Cinderella's carriage. It's Toy
Millennium
Story.
Falcon, there's a bunch of Star Wars.
Yeah, and if you see them in a thrift store, they just look like a sand bucket, or you really wouldn't know what it was if you didn't
Correct.
know about this, because it is about the size, I guess, of maybe smaller than a basketball, bigger than a lunchbox, but the purpose
Yeah,
is to
like
fill
if
it up
you
with
remember
popcorn.
the pails that McDonald's did for their Happy Meals and stuff, they're a little bit bigger than that, but
Right.
and it depends on each one is different sizes. So, but beyond that, newer stuff really isn't collectible unless it's limited edition. Now, I'm a pass holder, so we get pass holder previews, we get pass holder limited edition merchandise. The other thing that is crazy is, I guess I can't show it to you. There are magnets. They started making shaped magnets. They're probably 3, 4 inches square, and they sent them to pass holders. Had a Mickey on it. Everybody went
Okay.
nuts. And then Disney, of course. Oh, look, they're buying those too on eBay. So
Hmm.
now I probably have 50, 60 on my refrigerator, and they're all different characters, different shapes. And again, people go crazy for them.
Well, and it's anything limited edition. I mean, it could be Coca-Cola, it could be anything that, what is the tiki mugs from that restaurant there at Disney? They make a different tiki mug every year for Halloween. I think it's what's it called? Trader Sam's.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of started years ago with they made limited edition, and people just, and this is just like cheap, crappy plastic stuff. It's not anything, it's not gold. It's not, that's why if you see them in a thrift store, these popcorn buckets, you wouldn't think they're worth anything because they're not some extremely well made high end thing. It's a plastic bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know anything about the Trader Sam's tiki mugs?
Not really. I know of it, but we don't have Trader Sam's down here in Florida. I think maybe that's only California.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
I'm not sure about that, but I think maybe. But
Okay. That was
I
in one of my BOLO books. So I stumbled on that. Somebody told me about them. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So there's the whole Splash Mountain thing that's
yeah.
creating collectibles because they shut that down
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
going to reimagine it into something else.
Yeah. Some of us are purists and kind of wish they'd have left it alone, but they didn't ask me.
Right. That's what I hear from the diehard Disney people is just leave it alone. It's been there 30 something years. And so all the characters from, Uncle Remus stuff, if they were the originals, those skyrocketed in price earlier this year when they shut that down.
Yeah, I've sold a couple Splash Mountain collectibles that I had. I'm also lucky that I don't go very often, but we have 2 Disney outlet stores not too far from us too. Those,
Oh, okay.
they're not as good as they used to be, and there's also a cast member character warehouse that I have yet to get to go to, but I'm working on sweet talking one of my cast member friends into taking me for the next sale. So,
Okay. So a cast member is someone who is in character at the park.
correct.
That's
Anybody
what
who
they
works
call them.
is referred as cast member, no matter what your job.
Okay, and it's not like you're in the shows. It's just you're a cast member at the park because you work there.
Mickey writes your paycheck. It's just
Hmm.
that simple to get you a cast member. So even when I've worked at the Disney store in the past, and you're considered there too, but anytime you are working, you are considered on stage no matter what your job. And you have to stay in the Disney way
Hmm.
at all times, even down to how you point and answer questions.
Really? So there's an intensive training to work there.
In some cultures, pointing with your index finger to give a direction is the same as using another appendage in this country.
It's
So
offensive. Yes.
the two-finger point. You use both fingers and you point with the two, and then nobody's offended. But it's required.
Okay, and that's something you don't think about because Disney's quite international. People from all over the world come there, and you got to be careful how you do things so that you don't offend them. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard enough here in our country not to offend people, but
Well, especially people tend to get offended these days. So
that's true. So you can only try so hard to not offend them. I remember learning that in international business classes when I was in college getting my business degree. It was something about in the Middle Eastern countries, you don't ever want anyone to see the bottom of your shoe. Like if you cross your legs, you don't, that's offensive. And just things that you wouldn't know unless you studied it or lived in that country. So that's a great point about all of the international park, what do you call them? Attendees, park goers,
yes.
people.
The other Disney thing I sell a lot of is purses and handbags and backpacks,
Really?
especially the Loungefly. If it's got Loungefly and Disney on it, it will sell. It's just
So
that
that
simple.
is Loungefly a company and that's a collaboration?
Loungefly is a very popular collectible. They make backpacks and purses and wallets. They do other things besides Disney, but they have a division that's Disney. And the backpacks, they're the smaller ones, the mini backpacks. There's hundreds of patterns now. They average about $80 a piece in the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're fun. I mean, anybody down here who goes to Disney, that you carry it with you in the park because it's easier. It's
Okay.
just a smaller size backpack. It's not going to work. My husband carries one that, you could take camping. He carries all of our stuff.
He's got everything you might need. Yeah.
But mine are small. But I mean, the new one that was just out for the 100th anniversary, I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it was $88. I just bought it a week ago. Fortunately, I get a discount as a pass holder, but so
Okay.
it was pricey, but that one's for me. But I used to get a lot of them donated to the thrift store. So, I mean,
Okay.
if their condition
This
is
is
good,
good.
they're very, very, they're collectible like the popcorn buckets. I mean, I personally have 5. I haven't carried any of them. I just have them. So
Okay. Good to
Disney has
know.
a way of doing that for people. You just collect more and more.
Yeah. And then at some point, I mean, maybe if it's parents and their kid just has too much stuff, they start donating it. Or, I mean, Disney is a brilliant merchandiser of everything, and anything limited edition is going to increase in value. Like the pins and all that stuff that my head explodes when I see collections of pins. I'm like, how do you know which one to pick? To resell? Just that's
Well,
a
the
lot
problem
of tiny
is
things.
so many scrap pins that are not authentic, and it
Mhm.
takes a lot of research to know the difference because they look the same, unless you know what you're looking for. And there's so many that come as reproductions out of China. So
Mhm.
they'll take one, make a mold of it. It won't look good quality, and then if you know Disney, the paint's off, the colors are off. But that's
Right.
about the only way you can do that. And sometimes you almost have to have the original too.
There's some kind of rule about reproductions that it has to be um like, I don't know what the percentage is, like 20% different. That's why when you see, all these reproductions of Lily Pulitzer and Crocs and all these different things, it can't be exactly the same due to intellectual property rights and stuff like that. But I see all these mall brands for what looks like Lily Pulitzer. Crown and Ivy is one. I always, I found Lily. No, it's not. That's not it. But it's something with the pattern and the colors, and it has to be somewhere around 20% different. And if it's not, then whoever's reproducing it or making their knockoff, could be sued and all that stuff, the legal part of intellectual property
Correct.
rights. So I hear what you're saying on if you know Disney pins or anything else, you can spot the fakes because it's just a tad off. It's just not quite there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about Christmas ornaments?
Love Christmas. So I don't sell a lot of Christmas. I'll sell some. Depends what we get in the store. And I don't sell the stuff in the store for profit for me. I sell it goes back to the store, but I have an established eBay store, so I do it there. But um, the shiny bright ornaments I can sell every day. I tell you, Cracker Barrel Christmas is one of the best collectible I've found.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that Cracker Barrel's put out for the year, then it's not available and everybody wants it. I've sold lots of those. And, it's a hard thing. You have to go to Cracker Barrel too. So it's, you have to suffer and go eat too.
Oh
But
yeah, I do love Cracker Barrel. They make all kinds of stuff that I don't make at home.
what I love now is they're carrying the blow molds again.
Yes, yes.
As a kid, I still have my Frosty the Snowman from when I was a kid. But last year they put out a Grinch and he was so cute. And that's when I was going to my surgeon every week. And so we would go Cracker Barrel. And the one week we went and they were putting Christmas out, we were in a hurry. And I said, John, I really want him. And he says, well, then we'll get him. And then no, we had to leave. So we went back the next weekend. You know what happened?
He was gone.
There was me. So this year when Christmas came out, I'm on the phone. Do you have the Grinches again? We do. I'm like, John, get in the car. We're going to Cracker Barrel.
Right.
But the other, I mean, and those sold crazy, the blow molds, because a lot of people, younger people on eBay now don't even know what a blow mold is.
Mm-hmm.
But the vintage ones, oh my goodness. I sold last year at the store, we got a nativity, full nativity blow mold, vintage, everything worked, only one crack. I sold it for $500. I'm okay with that,
And you're
and I
okay
didn't.
did you ship it or was it local
Oh,
pickup?
it was local, but
That's good.
the vintage ones they're hard to come by. But like I say, I love Cracker Barrel collectibles, and I love finials, finialadabras, the hand blown glass tree toppers.
Mhm.
Those sell very nice, but I also collect them, so I don't sell many. I keep most. But
And I think Christopher Radko did some collaborations with Disney, and those are
Mhm.
super high priced.
Yeah, I have quite a few of those too. The biggest other thing I sell is yarn.
Really?
I sell yarn every day, every day. It's something people don't think about or know about. I do. I'm a crocheter. It's therapy. I have, at last count, about 450 skeins of yarn in my house. I just sold about 50 of them, though, because in our current situation, I needed to make some more money. So,
Mhm.
but people don't think about it. And most thrift stores, yarn is cheap, but it's got to be in good condition. It's got to preferably be a full skein. The best thing you can do is get 8 or 10 of the same, and they don't make it anymore most of the time. So
You know
unless
what
you get
I see
Walmart
is
to Walmart, and so many people will start a project and, oh, I don't have enough of that, and then that color's gone.
right. In thrift stores, these big clear bags of skeins of yarn, but they don't have any of the paper. So you don't know what brand it is, what it's made of, what the color number is. And every time I see that, I'm like, oh, who did this? Because you really can't resell it unless you have that paper on there with the information because you don't know what you're selling. Unless you just say mixed lot of yarn, we don't know what it is.
Yeah. But so many times we either have no yarn or hundreds of skeins because I live in Florida. Okay. We get a lot of cleanouts where people have passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma was a crocheter, and suddenly here comes 100 skeins of yarn. Or, Aunt Mary was a quilter, and suddenly you have an entire quilt room. So that's fun for me. So vintage, the cut and sew panels. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but you would go into the store and every year for Halloween, there'd be like, you can cut this out, it's already printed. You could make a Halloween vest or you can make a doll. Any of those that are uncut, those sell really well too.
So
Because
those are patterns or it's a kit?
it's actually fabric and it just comes right off the bolt. And
Okay.
one cut would be, for example, I had one for my son. It was a teddy bear, but you just sewed the two pre-printed pieces together, stuffed it, and stitched it up, and it made a bear. But all the
Yes.
printing is on there. There's no fancy cutting or sewing. But there's just hundreds and hundreds of those. There's Christmas ones that were like big door panels, or it's a pre-printed quilt that you just sew together and quilt. That's another big thing to look for in thrift stores because they're everywhere. And they're
Okay.
very marketable, especially if you put them together. I tend to bundle them by theme instead of just selling one. Daisy Kingdom is a big brand, but
Mhm.
but there's a lot in the craft department in a thrift store if you know what to look for.
Right.
And that's usually one of the cheaper sections in the store and one of the most overlooked, our store included. So that's someplace I would say to check it out if you know what you're looking for.
Or take the time to learn what to look for. I
Exactly.
mean,
You know,
there is a lot to learn in the craft category, but you just eat the elephant one bite at a time. And yes, there's going to be experts that have been doing this their whole life, and they just know because that is their
yeah.
hobby. And for crafters, it's kind of more of a hobby. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? Obsession. It's like I used to be one. It's like you can't wait to get something finished so you can get on to the next thing. It's lined up and you're never going to get them all done. But it just keeps you going because it's that satisfaction when you finish something. It's like, oh, I made that. So I get it. I was one before the internet was invented, and then that kind of fell to the wayside. But so we've had a few people on the podcast that know a lot about crafts and sewing, and it's just you just have to start learning. Do you have any tips on the yarn as far as brands or types to look for?
What I sell the most of is Lion Brand. And the kind of yarn is called mandala. Instead of being the long skein, it's more round. It's called a cake and it pulls from the center. It pulls very, very easy. And there's about 6 or 7 colors in every cake. So it self stripes, it puts the pattern in for you. I'm going to guess there's maybe 25 colors or so, but they retire them all the time. They had a different brand called Cupcake and they decided to clearance it out. And I went to a store and they probably had 500 skeins of it. So I bought a lot of it. And I
Mhm.
mean, some of the colors now sell for about $25 to $50 a skein
Wow.
because you can't get it anymore. Red Heart is popular too, but I mean, I sell a lot of handmade yarn that will have come from Italy and France. And there's things that get donated to my store, but
Mhm.
it'll be all hand dyed and hand spun with the tags and the unique stuff or a quantity of anything. If you have 6 to 12 skeins of something, somebody's going to buy that because they want to make a blanket,
Mhm.
but other than that, make sure it's clean and from a no smoking home. That's a biggie for me.
Right.
If I get something and it smells like smoke, I will not list it.
Yeah, it's too hard to get it out. You can't get it out. People ask me that all the time, oh, I found this great whatever item and it just smells like smoke. And I'm like, I wouldn't fool with it. You can try all the techniques of hanging it in the sun and, taking it to dry cleaner, but heat makes it worse. It makes the smell, well, and mothballs too, it makes the smell intensify. So, and like when you find something like that has a smoke odor, you don't know if it's the original item or if it was something that was next to it where there's cross contamination and the smell jumped over to, you know what I mean? And it's just,
I do.
it's a
We'll open
hassle
up a
to deal
clothes
with.
at the thrift store, and if it smells like smoke, it goes immediately to the trash because
Mhm.
no way. I don't like to touch it. I don't like to breathe it. It's just, it's not going to sell. So,
Yeah. And if you just try to sneak it in there and somebody gets it, get ready for that negative feedback because, you know, some people have more sensitive um sense of smell, and like they might smell something that you don't, and if if you smell it and they're one of those sensitive people, they're really going to smell it.
I am
And
one of those sensitive people. So
so you have a built-in smoke mothball detector.
yes,
Nope, not selling this, not selling that.
you
And
can't imagine every day at the store. You just can't imagine you never know what's coming in. That's what's
mhm.
fun, and is there anything you want to ask about a thrift store?
Running your own.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about that for a little bit because I know there are resellers out there who have this idea and oh, they see a retail space and they're like, oh, I could do my own thrift store. And so maybe give some of the pros and cons to help people who are considering it because it is a huge undertaking.
It is. Now in our area, we suffer all summer. All 3 summer months, we have very little business because our snowbirds are gone.
Mm,
And that's something a lot of people now, depending where you at, it may not be a factor, but we depend on the locals in the summer. And so that tends to be very hard for us. In snowbird season, I mean, we're so crazy busy, it's not funny. But it's an adventure and it's fun, but it's also hard because it's not like Macy's where I have 30 of this shirt. It's very, very hard to make a thrift store not look junky, which is our goal. We do
hmm.
upscale shopping at thrift store prices, and we try very, very hard to make. We have a boutique for fancy clothes and make our displays look good, but it's hard because every single hour your displays change. It's never finite. It's constant. So that part's a challenge. But it's interesting to get inventory because everything we got was donated. So some days we would have so much stuff you couldn't walk, and some days you don't have hardly anything. Well, I sent pictures, I think, of the back room one
Yes,
time.
you
No
did
one
post
did
that.
that.
And everybody's like, I'll give you $100 to let me go through there. Like it's, that is what we look for as treasure hunters. We love those rooms full of stuff.
Well, that's what I said. I don't have to go to estate sales anymore or thrift anymore because I own my own permanent garage sale. So,
Hmm.
but I do kind of miss estate sales. But from the thrift store, it's very hands on. Everything that comes in has to be touched, cleaned, sorted, priced. And yes, we know that you don't like that we use Sharpie. Uh-huh, we know that, but we don't have a lot of options because if we don't, people change the prices and take the tags off of everything we price. It's a real problem, even our specialty. Even with doing that, I have people who come in with Sharpies to try to change the prices.
Yes. And it's terrible because, come on, people, be honest. And I go to
It's a
one,
thrift store. It's not like it's $100.
I know, I go to one thrift store that has like 5 locations. It's not Goodwill, but they put probably 6 stickers on every hard good. And I asked them like one time when I was checking out, I'm like, this is so annoying. Why do y'all put so many stickers on here? And they're like, because people peel them off and they switch them around. And if there's 6 of them, then it's going to take them longer and they might get caught doing it. And so it wasn't something to make shoppers feel annoyed. It's almost a security feature.
It
And yeah,
is.
but there are people that switch even those colored barbs. They'll switch those. And it's just really, you're doing that to save $2? Come on.
You'd
You know?
be amazed every day when we clean our fitting rooms how many tags have been pulled while we're in there. And then we discovered my husband took the fitting room mirrors off to paint the walls, and it was full of tags behind the mirror.
Oh, they're hiding them back there.
And a lot of times, well, people, if you were, I'm a firm believer, if I really catch you stealing and I really care, fine, I'm calling the sheriff. But otherwise, that's between you and the law and God. I'm not getting into that. It's not worth it. It's a thrift store. If you think you need it that badly enough to risk stealing it, then have at it. But, it's just the gall of people is what blows our minds. But you have to let it go. For every bad customer, we have 50 good customers. So
Right. And I think some people are just wired that way. What can I get away with? A lot of
exactly.
shoplifting is not about they don't have money to buy it. Like Hollywood celebrities. What was it? Lindsay Lohan got arrested. I think it was her for shoplifting. It's just the thrill of doing it. It's not like I can't afford this. So there's that mindset out there. And how you do anything is how you do everything. They probably do it at the grocery store. They do it at Walgreens. They do it at restaurants. They do it everywhere they go. That's just who they are. And it sucks for the rest of us. But, it's not always about you don't have the money. It's about the thrill of getting caught.
Yeah, I mean, we find so many things that are in our store. We don't know what happened at the time, but let's just say people come in wearing a completely new outfit, shoes, and purse than when they walked in.
And I think that's why they limit how much you can take in the dressing room, because I saw a lady get caught one time. She took all these clothes in there and she just put them on, and then she put her street clothes back on over that, and she had all these. She just wore it right out the door. And we
sell our clothes.
Going on.
We sell our clothes for $3, or most days $1. $1. So yeah, okay. If you really need to steal the dollar shirt, go ahead. I'm not going to get in your face. It's not worth it for me.
People do anything, and it's like the law is always trying to stay ahead of the criminals, but in reality, the criminals are always 2 steps ahead. They're always out there trying to figure out new ways to be dishonest, and my mind doesn't work like that, but some people's does.
Yeah, we put security cameras in. That helped a little bit, but we had a great big monitor at the front where you check out. So people knew we were watching, but in the same breath, then they learned where the cameras were. So then they would go to a part of the store that didn't have them. So you can't stop that. But
I know.
Those are fun. Being able to pick up and deliver is probably the biggest thing you need to be able to do if you really want good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We got very limited on that because my driver got very, very ill, and so he was unable to come back. So the last year, we haven't really been able to do that. So that cost us a lot, because so many people in Florida, especially, Bill and Sally moved from Michigan to Florida. They bought a furnished condo, and Sally don't like the stuff that's in it, and she brought her semi full of stuff from Michigan. So suddenly we get a house full of furniture. Well, they want you to pick it up. So that's the biggest thing you got to be able to do. There's also, I don't know the name of it, my husband's on it. There's an email group he's on where they will say, hey, I have all this stuff. Would you like to come pick it up? And these are high upscale neighborhoods and stuff. So we've gotten some amazing things by doing that. But they'll list what they have and give you the date they need it picked up. If you can go get it, then it's yours.
And you not only need a vehicle, you need people to pick up and move the furniture. And I'll tell you, I worked with a Humane Society thrift store back around 2010 to 2012, helping them cherry pick out the more expensive things, and I sold them on eBay. But they had a van, and they would do furniture pickups, but they used they weren't inmates at the jail. They were people that were doing community service, and they got that labor for free because they would do an exchange right off their community service. So, but then again, those people didn't really want to work. They were there because they had to be. And it wasn't a great situation, but it was free labor. Have you heard of that?
Oh, we've used them before too. Yeah. Quite a bit, a lot of younger kids. But what we find that we liked is we work with reemployability. These are people who've gotten hurt on the job. So it's workman's comp. Mm-hmm. So they're being paid by their company, usually 3 or 4 times what I'm getting paid, by the way. But the point is they're getting a paycheck. So they're there to work. They just have limited capacity. Mm-hmm. So we work with them and sometimes we get somebody that's not a fit. But one of my best guys like that, he was blind, but he was still one of the best workers we ever had. We figured it out. We set him up. He learned what he was doing. And so they're a great help for us because we don't have to pay them, but they're there every day.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't imagine the crazy things that come into a thrift store. It's unreal. Every time I swear they can't surprise me, they do. So,
yeah. Well, I did intake with that Humane Society thrift store because they didn't know what was valuable. What they thought was valuable really wasn't. It was like all these, collectible things. Like all of a sudden, oh, this is popular. People want this now, and they just didn't have the experience I had. So I did intake, and you would just, yeah, you had to wear gloves because you don't know what's in there, what's wrapped up in a pocket, what, the dog threw up on the tablecloth. They just, donated it like
Mhm.
that. It was okay. It was kind of gross, but yet again, it was a treasure hunt, and you never knew. We'd find little, silver trinkets and things wrapped up in clothing, and like somebody had hid it, and then they died, and all their stuff got donated as is. And it was a treasure hunt. You just never knew what you were going to find.
Also in pants pockets and in the pages of a book.
Bibles. People put their money in
Mhm.
Bibles. Yep, we'd find that. So
And one day you open a box and you're just floored by how wonderful whatever it was, and you can't believe someone donated it, but it makes up for the ones that go right back outside.
yeah, yeah, the ones you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to be near that. That goes in the burn pile.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting to the end here, and this turned into more of a Disney selling tutorial and thrift store running management primer. So you've been really helpful with all these tips. And I'll be the first one to admit the whole Disney category is very overwhelming if you don't know it.
Well,
You've
I'm
been
always
helpful.
around. Anybody ever wants to ask, by all means, shoot me a message. I'm happy to help if I can. I love Disney. So,
Great. One more question about Disney. Do you know anything about Disney Club 33?
what would you like to know? It's a
Well,
very exclusive secret club that costs quite a bit of money to be a member of. It does exist, yes. I am not a member, sadly, no.
it's kind of like the Delta Gold Lounge or whatever it's called. Like, um, people pay a lot of money to be part of this. And I don't know the benefits or discounts on products, or I don't even know what the benefits are. I just came across
No,
it today.
it's more of a look at me, I belong to an exclusive club kind of thing. It's much
Okay.
more of that. Disney likes to do things like that. I mean, we have things that are only for pass holders. There are things that are only for vacation club members. Right now, our insurance is Florida Blue, and they have made a special place at Epcot that only Florida Blue members can go, and it's got crafts and snacks and a place to sit down, and but there's no other people there. It's quiet, it's nice. So there's a lot of those things, but
Mhm.
Club 33 is the thing, very
It's
exclusive. I
it's
don't know a lot of details because I knew that was in my budget probably, but
it's the higher echelon of
Mhm.
Disney park goers, and I think
Nothing
they
has
have.
a secret entrance and a secret
Yeah,
door, a secret decoder ring kind of concept.
yeah, it's like a secret where the restaurants are or the bars or whatever. Only they know, and it's hidden. It's
There used to be one in downtown. To me, it's still downtown Disney Springs, but they got rid of that. It was an exclusive, really neat club with the back room and the secret door, and not that it was necessarily just for liquor, but like the old speakeasies and the stuff where you'd go through the other door and into the special part of the club, but they closed it, so that never got to go there.
okay. So they do have little trinkets and memorabilia and like keychains and little things that say Disney Club 33. So, um,
Well, there's now
listeners,
Disney D23 too, which is started in California, and you pay a membership to join that. I am a member of D23, and that gets you a beautiful, gorgeous printed magazine every month. You get a welcome gift. You get sales. You get early access to a lot of events. A lot of the events are in California, but we just had a big convention here in Orlando. So D23 can be a lot of fun too, and you get exclusive merchandise there too.
okay, good to know. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate all that information. A lot of the listeners are going to love this because it's This is like stamps, coins, jewelry, and Disney. It's all very specialized knowledge. You just have to learn it. So, and our best wishes for your continued health.
Thank you.
You have overcome a lot of things, and it was just a pleasure talking with you. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again, Shelly, for coming on and sharing all of that wonderful knowledge with us. On to today's trivia question. And you know it will be about Disney since our conversation was fraught with Disney information. The question is, who came up with the name Mickey Mouse? Here are a few seconds to think about it. Walt Disney named his first iteration of the character Mortimer Mouse. However, at the urging of Lillian Disney, his wife, the character was renamed Mickey Mouse. Reportedly, Lillian disliked the name of Mortimer for the mouse and suggested Mickey. And I didn't find an actual date on when this happened. I'm sure it's out there. Just after 5 minutes of looking, I moved on. It was around 1935. So that's how Mickey got his name. Okay, next week my guest is Connie in New York. We had a chat on YouTube back in 2018. How was that 5 years ago? Anyway, we are circling back to catch up with Connie and see what she has been up to. So make sure you tune in for that episode. Thank you everyone for supporting this podcast by listening to it and telling your eBay friends. I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a prosperous and productive week. Take care, and as Ron Burgundy says, stay classy. Bye, everybody.